Hey there Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. Okay, so in today's video we are going to be taking a look at how to find transits, progressions and solar returns. These things are all prediction techniques, okay? They can be used as timing tools within astrology, so definitely stay tuned for those if you're interested. However, before we do dive into this, definitely make sure that you give this video a like if you like it today. Also make sure to subscribe if you have not already, and to of course click that little bell icon so that you can keep yourself updated with further content from myself. And one more quick thing to mention, and that is that I have a merchandise store. So if you're interested in picking up any of those merchandise pieces, then go to the links in the description box below. Okay, so with all of those introductions out of the way, let's do this. Alright, so as I said briefly at the very beginning, transits and progressions and solar returns, they are all about timing and predictions in astrology. However, this video is to provide you with the basics so you can understand transits and progressions and solar returns much better. But in other videos, I will be looking at the timings or at the indicators of things like marriage, relationships, children, housing, property, all that good stuff. Now, if these videos are if they've already been made, then naturally I will link them in the description box below. So if you're watching this, after I've made them, you can go to the links below, as I say. But if not, then stay tuned. Right, so to begin, let's start off by looking at transits. So in a nutshell, transits represent the current positions of the stars and planets, so how things are looking in real time. So for example, Saturn is currently in the sign of Aquarius in the sky, and it will continue to be in the sign of Aquarius right up until 2023. And then looking at the moon is currently in Virgo on the day that I'm recording this video, but it'll be in a completely different sign within a matter of days. Essentially, the planets all move at different speeds. They have different orbits around the Earth, and so as they move through the 12 signs, they will do so at different rates. But the main thing to consider when it comes to transits is that they are happening now. They're happening now for everybody on Earth. And so when you pull up a copy of your birth chart on astro.com, which is a system that, it's a website that I prefer to use. When you pull up your birth chart on astro.com, you can select the with transit section, and by doing so, you will see which houses the planets are transiting through, aka passing through within your birth chart. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just give you guys a quick tutorial on how to find your transits. So go to astro.com. Full credit goes to astro.com, of course, by the way, here. And once you're there, enter in your birth information. Once you put in all of your information, which by the way, your time of birth is important. Enter in all that information. Once you do that, select the name or the chart that you wish to look at. Then go to extended chart selection, and in the house system section, select your chosen house system that you would like to use. Now, you can use the default system there, which is provided, which is Placidus, if you want to. But for the purpose of these tutorials, I will be using the whole sign system. So I'm selecting whole signs. Then in the chart type section, select natal chart and transits. And click here to show the chart, and voila, voila, you have a copy of your birth chart with the transits being shown in green around the outer wheel. So just using my own chart for an example, as you can see from mine, I have Pluto transit the 5th house. I also have Chiron transit the 8th house. And I have the North Node transit the 10th house. Okay, so now you know how to find your transits. You can then look into how these transits may be playing out within your life. You can look at common themes that may be occurring along with how your actions align with these themes. So let's say you're experiencing a 7th house Uranus transit. Scorpio risings, I'm looking at you. Maybe this is pertaining to sudden, out of the blue relationship encounters that turn into something more, or perhaps this pertains to relationships falling apart suddenly for the better. Or let's say you're experiencing a 1st house Pluto transit, Capricorn risings. I'm looking at you guys. Maybe this is suggesting deep transformations when it comes to your self-identity and your life path, or maybe it suggests profound endings and beginnings that are life-changing and pretty huge. However, it's also good to remember both the signs that these transits are occurring in, along with what placements you already have natally, essentially meaning the placements that you were born with. So what I mean by this is that, well, an individual going through a 7th house Neptune transit in Pisces, Virgo risings during this time, well, they might experience things differently in comparison to someone going through a 7th house Neptune transit in Aries, which, by the way, Libra risings, this is what you have to look forward to in the next coming years. Likewise, an individual going through a 3rd house Jupiter transit in Aquarius, Sagittarius risings during this time, they might experience things differently in comparison to someone going through a 3rd house Jupiter transit in Pisces. Furthermore, like I said, it's also good to consider natal placements. So for example, maybe you're someone who is experiencing a 9th house Chiron transit in Aries, and you were born with Venus and Moon and Jupiter and Mercury all in the sign of Aries. There's an Aries stellium happening there. Well, this transit is, well, the transit of Chiron is going to impact you a lot differently in comparison to someone who doesn't have any planets in Aries. Or let's say you're experiencing a 6th house Saturn transit in Aquarius and you were born with Sun and Saturn and Mercury in Aquarius like me. Again, this transit of Saturn is going to hit differently in comparison to someone who doesn't have any planets in Aquarius, especially given that this specific transit is representing your Saturn return, which is a whole other kettle of fish. Still though, I hope you can see where I'm coming from here, at how individual and how complex transits can be. Yeah, there's a lot to consider. And so when you watch a predictions video or you read a horoscope online, these things aren't taking into consideration the whole picture. They are not addressing any natal placements or natal planets you already have in your birth chart. However, predictions and horoscopes can still be insightful. They can be fun. They can still provide much value and substance and guidance. They can give some leeway and guidance into common threads and themes that you're working with. So when it comes to the timing techniques and when it comes to these life experience indicators that I'll be talking about in my other videos, try to look at them through the lens of patterns and potentialities, not really through a lens of definite truths and 100%. As I said, predictive astrology can be fun. But the things that I will be sharing in my other videos, they are not considering your whole chart. And also, let's try and not get stuck into strict mindsets either, because when it does come to astrology, things are subject to change and interpretation matters as well. Oh, and also remember your unique chart along with what resonates with you as an individual. The last thing that I just want to touch on when it comes to transits before we do move on to progressions are aspects. So for example, you might be experiencing a 4th house Pluto transit in Capricorn right now, as we're looking at you Libra risings out there, but maybe you have Moon in Cancer natally, and it's making an opposition aspect to that Pluto transit. Or maybe you have Mars in Aries natally, and it's making a square aspect to that Pluto transit. Or maybe you have Jupiter in Taurus and natally, and this Jupiter in Taurus is making a trine aspect to that Pluto transit. Yeah, basically what I'm trying to say here, folks, is it's good to look into how the planets are working together. So how they are working together in harmony and in disharmony. And then what you can do is you can reflect and ask yourself how these aspects and how these energies, how they're playing out within your life, along with your actions that align with your discoveries and your realizations. Likewise, transits will aspect other transits in the chart. So for example, Pluto is in Capricorn right now, and it's making a sextile aspect to Neptune in Pisces in the sky. But by July 2021, Mars will move into Cancer, and so this Mars energy will make an opposite aspect to Pluto in Capricorn. Therefore, again, with these aspects between transits, consider where they are occurring within your personal natal birth chart. Okay, so moving along, let's now look at progressions. Now progressions, or more specifically, secondary progressions, they are a little bit more tricky than transits, but they are also used as a prediction timing method as well. So in a nutshell, progressions look at how your natal placements progress forward over a certain period of time. However, they do not move at the same rate or speed as transits. They move much slower, and because they move slower, well, it's highly unlikely that your Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto will progress into another sign throughout your life. And even if any of these planets do move into a different sign throughout your life, I don't think they will have much of an impact. Though before we do get further into this part, into progressions, I will again give you a quick tutorial of how to locate your progressed chart. So again, enter in all of your information, select your name, select the chart that you want. Once you have that, go to extended chart selection, and then in the house system section, select your chosen house system. You can use the default system, which is Placidus, if you want, but for the purpose of these tutorials, I will be using the whole sign system. So I'm selecting whole signs. Then in the chart type section, select natal and progressed chart. Then select click here to show the chart. And if you look at the planets in green around the outer wheel, these are your progressions. These are your secondary progressions if we want to get super technical. From my chart, you can see that Jupiter has not progressed. It's still in Virgo. Same with Uranus and Neptune, both still in Capricorn. Same with Pluto, still in Scorpio, which hasn't changed degrees at all, actually, still at 22 degrees. However, as you can also see from my chart, the sun has progressed into Pisces. It's progressed from Aquarius into Pisces. And then Venus and Mars, they have progressed into Aquarius from Capricorn. Likewise, Mercury has progressed into Aries from Aquarius. And then the moon has progressed into Taurus from Aries. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break these things down. I'm going to break the progressions down one by one so you can understand your own better. So firstly, let's address the sun, the progressed sun. Now the sun is said to change signs, typically 3 times throughout an average human life. And a good way to measure the progressed sun's movement is to think of 1 degree equivalating roughly around about 1 year. So from this chart, this individual was born when the sun was in Cancer at 19 degrees, and then the sun has progressed into Virgo at 27 degrees. So if we count from 19 degrees Cancer to 27 degrees Virgo, that's about 68 degrees. And this individual is 70 years old, born in 1950. So it's roughly around about the same there. And if we look at this other individual was born when the sun was in Libra at 29 degrees. Now the sun has progressed into Sagittarius at 20 degrees. So if we count from 29 degrees Libra to 20 degrees Sagittarius, that's about 51, and this individual is 50, born in 1970. So again, roughly around the same there. Then using myself as an example, I was born when the sun was in Aquarius at 19 degrees. Now my sun has progressed into Pisces at 18 degrees. And so counting from 19 degrees Aquarius to 18 degrees Pisces, that's about 29, and I actually am 29 years old. So as you can see from this method, it's pretty simple. However, just because the sun progresses, this does not mean you're not a Taurus anymore, or a Gemini anymore, or an Aquarius anymore. The progressed sun simply shows you how you progress and how you mature as an individual. Your progressed sun shows you how you implement change and how you grow and how you evolve on a personality ego level. So for example, let's say you were born when the sun was in Taurus at 4 degrees, and now you're 33 years old and the sun has progressed into Gemini at 7 degrees. Maybe for the last 7 years of your life or so, give or take, you've changed your mind on so many things, specifically surrounding your personality and your self-expression and your ego. Maybe you've had no other choice than to change your ego-focused attitudes, especially given that you can be very firm-footed and stubborn as an individual. And perhaps changes in your mindset lead you towards learning different things about yourself, such as why you act the way you do, or why you like certain things. Or let's say you were born when the sun was at 27 degrees in Libra, and now you're 30 years old and the sun has progressed into Scorpio at 27 degrees. Perhaps for the last 27 years or so of your life, you have strongly grappled with loss or with intense emotions. Maybe you've went through huge ego transformations that have tested your willpower and your strength and your emotional resilience. Or maybe you've been forced to look within at your shadow during many stages of your life, and so you've experienced many dark nights of the soul. Perhaps by digging into your psychology, you come to understand why you put on a happy face on the outside whilst you're actually really, really hurting on the inside, for example. Or maybe you understand why you bend over backwards so much for others whilst refusing help from them, only to get angry and resentful later. Right, so I hope I was able to explain the progressed sun in a way that was easy to understand. But moving along then to the progressed Mercury. Now Mercury moves a little faster than 1 degree per year, like with the sun. And remember also that Mercury, Mars, and Venus, they all go retrograde. So your progressed Mercury, Mars, and Venus could go retrograde at some point throughout your life. Still though, when it comes to the progressed Mercury, the speed varies. Though to be fair, this is Mercury that we're talking about here, and Mercury typically has the reputation for being flighty, fickle. I know for my dad, he's 77 and he was born with Mercury in Capricorn, and now Mercury has progressed into Taurus. So Mercury has progressed through four different signs at his ripe old age. But then for my mom, she is 70 and she was born with Mercury in Cancer. And now Mercury has progressed into Virgo and it's retrograde. So it's progressed through 2 other different signs, but it'll be hanging out in Virgo for a little while until it goes direct again. So from the examples, I hope you can see what I mean by how the speed of Mercury can really vary. And it's interesting too, because I have a friend who was born with Mercury in Sagittarius retrograde, and now Mercury has progressed into Scorpio. So it progressed back into Scorpio, but Mercury's also direct now. So it's going to shift direct, moving back over through Sagittarius. So for so much of her life, she's lived with Mercury retrograde. Now again, same with the sun. Mercury progressions don't mean that you don't have Mercury in a specific sign anymore. The progressed Mercury simply shows you how your mind progresses and matures. It shows you how your speech changes and how you grow and evolve on an intellectual communicative level. So for example, if you were born with Mercury in Aquarius like me, and now it's in Aries, the progressed Mercury is in Aries, sure, you're still going to be this highly opinionated individual, but now you're also going to be quite passionate and energetic about your opinions. Maybe you grow to reach intellectual personal goals that align with subjects that get you pumped up and eager to learn about. Or let's say you were born with Mercury in Pisces, but now Mercury has progressed into Taurus. Sure, you're still going to be intuitive and poetic when communicating, but now you're also going to be quite firm and grounded in your thoughts and your ideas. Maybe you start learning about subjects that are more sensual and pleasurable, that then only add to your imagination and your creativity. However, what's also important to keep in mind is the period in between certain progressions. So in the case of the Mercury in Pisces / Mercury in Taurus example that I previously just mentioned, there's still that Mercury in Aries time period in between there. So perhaps throughout this certain cycle or this time period, you were more fast and impulsive with your learning and with your education. I mean, I know for me that whilst Mercury was progressing through the sign of Pisces, I was often escaping into my mind, so I didn't need to deal with the everyday realities and stresses of the world. It was a way for me to cope, I suppose. This time period was a big learning curve for me in my life, in that it made me aware of how distant and how far removed I felt from others. And also it made me aware of how lonely I felt and how misguided I was. It was quite a directionless time for me, but also it was a very healing time. It gave me plenty of time to contemplate and reflect upon the next chapter of my life. But now with this progressed Mercury in Aries, I am so much clearer mentally. I'm much more aware of what I want and how to get there. Which, by the way, I just want to mention here that my progressed Mercury in Pisces was occurring in the 7th house of one-on-one relationships, which I suppose leads me on to another thing to keep in mind when it comes to progressions, and that is the house that the progressions are playing out in. Yes, remember to consider the house placement of them. Right, so with Mercury being explained there, let's now move on to the progressed Venus. Now, the progressed Venus moves a little bit faster than the progressed Sun. It moves slightly over 1 degree per year, and it's the progressed Venus that will show you how you progress and mature when it comes to matters of love and relationships. So looking at how you change and grow and evolve on a cooperative and social level. So for example, if you were born with Venus in Gemini and now it's progressed into Cancer, sure, you're still going to be flirty and lighthearted and playful within your one-on-one relationships, and you're also still going to be attracted to intellectual partners, but now you're also going to be quite nurturing and affectionate. You might grow to truly appreciate the memories that you make with your partners, or you might become more attracted to someone who you seek to settle down with, someone who you can even raise a family with. Or let's say you were born with Venus in Leo and now Venus has progressed into Libra. Sure, you're still going to be spontaneous and warm-hearted and really outgoing when it comes to matters of love, but maybe now you're focused more on diplomacy and fairness. You're willing to negotiate more, possibly because you're now married. And during that time when Venus was progressing through Virgo, perhaps this was a time of ironing things out within your relationships. It was a time period of you addressing what did or didn't work between you and someone else. Perhaps it was also a time period of you being serving and submissive towards another. Though another thing to consider when it comes to Venus, of course, is money. And so with the progressed Venus, there may be changes when it comes to money and finances. So for example, maybe a progressed 6th house Venus may suggest financial gains at work, or maybe a progressed 8th house Venus may suggest financial gains through an inheritance or through a loan, or maybe a progressed 11th house Venus may suggest financial gains through a community or through an online program or through a friendship circle. Okay, so moving on to the progressed Mars. Now the progressed Mars moves slightly slower than the other planets mentioned so far. It moves about half a degree every year, and it's the progressed Mars that will show you how you progress and how you mature when it comes to matters of sex, anger, drive, energy, and motivation. It will show you how you change and evolve on a competitive and leadership level, and it will show you how you grow in terms of initiation and action. So for example, if you were born with Mars in Aries and now it's in Taurus, it's progressed, your progressed Mars is in Taurus, sure, you're still going to be a fighter and a go-getter, a doer when it comes to pursuing your goals. You're also going to get really fired up with passion, with an urge to act immediately, but maybe now you're also going to be calculative. You're going to be more level-headed about things. You're going to be a bit more patient. You might grow to act on your desires based on how valuable they actually are to you. And you also might be more slower moving when it comes to the likes of sex. There's much more of an emphasis as well, possibly, on sensuality and taste and touch. Then again, maybe you're someone like my brother who's progressed Mars went retrograde. Now he was born with Mars in Pisces at 29 degrees, and now his progressed Mars is in Aries. But for so much of his life, the progressed Mars was retrograde, suggesting difficulty with action, also suggesting a confusion towards his direction and his path. Now he's more on track. He's now more comfortable, I feel, with his direction and his path. It is now direct, that Mars energy. But for many years, he didn't know what he wanted. He did not know what he wanted out of life. He got into all sorts of mayhem and trouble. So I hope you can see what I mean from these planetary secondary progressions so far, guys. Though lastly, let's actually look at the secondary progressed moon. Now, the progressed moon changes the fastest out of all the different planetary placements, as the progressed moon stays in one sign for about 2 to 2.5 years. Now, a good way to remember this is by thinking about how the moon stays in one sign for about 2 to 2.5 days. But that's happening in real time. And so in the case of the progressed moon, just simply change days to years. So you might be born with moon in Cancer, for example, at 0 degrees, but by the time you are 2.5 years old, your moon will have progressed into Leo. Then by the time you're 5 years old, your moon will have progressed into Virgo, so on and so forth. And by the time you're 27 to 28 years old, your progressed moon will have made its way throughout the entire zodiac wheel. And when the progressed moon comes back to its natal moon position, this is known as your lunar return. Now, like other planetary returns, such as the famous Saturn return or the Jupiter return, solar return, Venus return, the lunar or the moon return represents the ending and the beginning of a cycle. And in the case of the moon, this cycle pertains to your emotions along with how you nurture and care for yourself. Now, returns in astrology, basically they symbolize a compilation of experiences and information that we have learned throughout different stages of our lives based on a particular planet coming into play. Returns really do look at cycles. So during a Saturn return, for example, between the ages of 28 to 30, you might review where you're at career-wise or success-wise, or you might think about your purpose and your position in society along with how you contribute to society, or you might go over lessons that you've learned, or you might think about how you've matured and grown because, well, now you're an adult, now you're having to take responsibility of your life along with other people's lives, such as any children if you have any. But in the case of a lunar return, you're about 27 to 28 years old, which, to be fair, this lines up very closely with a Saturn return. Still, however, it's during this time that maybe you start to review your nest, you start to review where you live or where you feel settled, where you feel a sense of belonging. And I think that the lunar and Saturn returns, I think maybe they line up closely for a reason in this respect, sort of signifying these mother and father archetypes within each and every one of us. So looking at how we look after ourselves, how we support ourselves, along with how we take responsibility and hold ourselves accountable. But essentially, when it comes to your lunar return, you might reflect a great deal on where you feel you belong, along with how you support yourself emotionally. And if there are others in your life that you're caring for, such as a spouse or a child or a parent, same thing. Furthermore, also keep in mind those 2 to 2.5 year cycles as well, with the progressed moon moving through each sign. Much like the other planets mentioned, the progressed moon will show you how you progress and mature when it comes to your emotions and when it comes to your support system. And it will show you how your nurturance evolves and how you change on a caregiving, family orientated level. So let's say your progressed moon is in Cancer, but you were born with moon in Gemini. Sure, you're still going to intellectualize your emotions, but maybe during this Cancer moon cycle, you'll be a bit more sympathetic towards how you and others are feeling. Or let's say your progressed moon is in Aquarius, but you were born with moon in Sagittarius. Sure, you're still going to be caring in a blunt, direct way where you say what's on your mind, but maybe during this Aquarius moon cycle, you'll enforce your opinions more strongly and you will not change your mind easily. Now, like I said earlier, keep in mind the house that your planetary progressions are playing out in, and also remember aspects of your progressions and natal placements. Plus, also keep in mind how transits and progressions are playing out together. It's good to look at both of these charts to get a feel for what's going on within your life. Though, following on from this point, another thing to mention is actually the differences between transits and progressions. So try to think of transits signifying external events and themes that are happening in real time that can in turn impact us internally. And then think of progressions signifying more of an internal experience where we change and grow and mature on a more psychological level, which in turn can impact us externally, such as our wants, our desires, and our needs changing. Though I suppose I also feel I need to say that this is not to say that progressions don't reflect our outside experiences or events. And so in this respect, both transits and progressions, they can indicate what's going on inside of ourselves and outside of ourselves. But still, I think progressions represent a much more internal and psychological shift. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about today is the solar return chart. Again, this is another great prediction / timing tool in astrology. I personally really like looking at my solar return chart every year for the year ahead and also for other years to come. And I also like looking at other years that have passed. So similarly to transits and progressions, let's also show you how you can find your solar return chart. Again, enter in your details and then select your name or the chart that you want. Then go to extended chart selection. Then in the house system section, select your chosen house system. You can choose the default system, which is Placidus if you want, but for the purpose of these tutorials, I'll be using the whole sign system. So I'm selecting whole signs. Then here where it says start date, select which year you wish to pull up. You can go back in time if you want. You can look into the future, 10 years from now if you want. Now from this example, I'm going to change my dates to 2022. So looking at what's happening for me next year. So once you've done that, then go to chart type section, the chart type section, and select solar return chart. Then select click here to show the chart. And as you can see from my chart, I'll be going through a Scorpio rising year along with a moon in Taurus year. And when it comes to the sun in your solar return chart, this will never change. And this is because the solar return chart is drawn up based on the returning of your sun in your chart, aka your birthday, basically. So if you were born with sun in Cancer at 18 degrees, your solar return charts will always show Sun in Cancer at 18 degrees. But then with the other planets, well, the other planets will vary, and the house placements and everything will also vary. These things will change year by year based on their positions during your birthday. Now, the cool thing about the solar return chart is that it gives you a look into the year ahead. It'll give you an insight into what themes may be playing out for you during different ages. So if I was to go back to 2012 to 2013, for example, in my solar return chart, I was 20 years old. Jupiter was in Taurus in my 10th house throughout that year. Likewise, Uranus and Venus were in Aries in the 9th house throughout that year. Which is interesting because during this time, I lived in 2 different countries and I also worked abroad. But then if I go back to 2015 to 2016, I was 23 years old and I had a Pisces stellium in the 11th house. And during this time, I was all over the place when it came to friendships. I was super wishy-washy. But then fast forward to today, I have Cancer in the 11th house with Moon in Capricorn. So this is the solar return year that I'm currently on. Right now, I feel so much more nurtured within my friendships. I feel so much more secure than I ever have. And also, I'm working on some emotional blockages within my life. Again, I hope you can see how the solar returns, they can be helpful when it comes to understanding certain situations that you may be experiencing throughout the years. And if you want to get a good hard look at everything, I do recommend using transits, progressions, and solar returns just all together. Try and look at all of these prediction techniques as different parts of the puzzle, and also look out for common themes and patterns between them all. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my video on how you can find transits, progressions, and solar returns in astrology. Now, if you do have any thoughts and opinions on today's video, then certainly let us know what you thought of the video in the comment section down below. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, thank you for subscribing, and of course, if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then make sure that you click that subscribe button, and also make sure that you give this video a like, remember, and I will be back with another video very, very soon. Bye!